2, 1. Hello everybody, I'm JackieKCooper, and my entertainment rundown for today is a review of two movies, the movie Amulet and also the film Most Wanted. Amulet is a horror film per se. It's about a young man in Europe, and he is kind of at a loss. He doesn't have a good job. He's just wandering through life, and he meets a nun played by Imelda Staunton, and she convinces him that there's this woman who lives in a house in the city that is taking care of her mother, who's up on the third floor. Her mother has dementia of some type or something like that, and she wants him to kind of help with the house repairs, etc. And he will be able to live there until he gets his life back together. So the young man, who is played by Alec Sicarno, he moves into the house. The young woman's played by Carla Jury. I know neither of those actors had I heard of before, but they are there. She cooks different meals for him, different foods. He doesn't know exactly what he's eating, but it's delicious, and he enjoys it very much. And then later on, they develop a relationship with each other. And then there's always the mother up on the third floor, it looks like, who is screaming and hollering and whatever. So you get kind of a horror film aspect from that relation, from that storyline, that evolves into something even wilder. But at the same time this is going on, there's a side story of a young man who's working at a guard gate to keep people from crossing over into another country, and a woman comes there and wants to cross over, and he tells her she can't, that she'll be killed if she goes there. And that story develops. But the two stories, to me, never really matched up. There's some glimpses of perhaps what's going on to give you an idea of how you reconcile these two storylines that are going, but not enough. To me, it was like watching two entirely different movies, and when one would end and then the other one would end. So it was not cohesive. The acting is good enough. I never got into the story enough. It was never clear enough to me for me to enjoy it as something that I was knowledgeable about. I did like the scary aspects because they weren't gruesome. It was just what is happening on the third floor, etc. And why is this young man? What is his point in being in the house, and how is it going to affect him in that type of way? The actors are good. They play their parts well. The fact that I didn't know them before this makes me able to accept them in the roles that they play. That's a plus. I accept she is who she is because I didn't know Carla Jury, and I didn't know Alec Sicarno at all. So that was, I can accept him as a young man. The movie itself is rated R because there is profanity, there is violence, and there's that kind of a horror aspect to it that is there. I scored it 3 out of 10. I just never got into it. And when it was over with, I was still sitting there thinking, what have I watched? So I gave it some points for the horror aspect of it that did create some tension, but I never ever fell into what was going on. So 3 out of 10. That's not a rush out and watch the movie type endorsement at all. I was disappointed. Amulet, rated R for profanity and violence, 3 out of 10. But then we moved on to the other movie, Most Wanted, and I knew absolutely nothing about this movie. I hadn't heard about it. The only reason that I was inclined to watch it was because it stars Josh Hartnett. And I have liked Josh Hartnett and his acting. I got a chance to meet and interview him when he did the film Pearl Harbor. And I was actually over in Hawaii and got to interview him. He was a very interesting actor. I thought his performance in Pearl Harbor was interesting, but his career never took off like I thought it would. That movie Pearl Harbor has Josh Hartnett and Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck's career went sky high, and Josh Hartnett's just didn't go. And in this film, he is a journalist who does exposés of corrupt politicians, that type of thing. He's married, has a child. He has to be protective of his family because sometimes when he does these stories, then he tends to pull the people in, and they seem to get to know him or about him personally, and so they go moving to threaten his family or whatever. But he's got a TV show that he's doing. He also writes for a newspaper, and he gets the inclinations. He gets some leads on a story about a case that involved a young man who was drawn into a drug racketeering element. He was kind of an innocent who did some drugs, but he meets a guy played by Jim Gaffigan, who is a comedian who turned dramatic actor, and he comes under his influence. The police are using Gaffigan as an informer, and he sets up this character played by Antoine Olivier Pillon. Antoine Olivier Pillon, and he is Gaffigan's character says that this kid is a known drug smuggler, that he has all the contacts in the Asian countries and can bring back all the these kilos of heroin, and the police get really excited about it, and they think, oh, we're going to have a big drug bust, and so they work to set him up so that he will get the drugs, and then they can arrest him. He thinks that that they're working with him, but in effect they're going to arrest him and make it even worse, that he's going to take the fall. Well, while that story is going on, then you've got Josh Hartnett's story where he's the investigative reporter, and he's got a tip on this, and he believes that the young man is innocent. They take place in different time frames. There's the Gaffigan story is one period of time, and then the Josh Hartnett story occurs after the kid has been arrested and it is in a prison for drug smuggling. There's and you see the background of how he got from this point in the old story to this new point with Josh Hartnett in the new story. So you've got that going on also. The acting in this movie, Hartnett is really a great lead for this role. He looks the part. He seems like the aggressive reporter, and there's so many intricacies that weave its way through this story. It's based on true events. Let me say that right off, because I love movies that are based on true events. But it's based on true events, and at the end of the movie, it gives you of what happened to these people who were involved in this movie. But the cast is good. Like I said, you've got Josh Hartnett, you've got Jim Gaffigan, Stephen McHattie, who's been an actor for years and years now, Antoine Olivier Pillon, and then Amanda Crew, who plays Josh Hartnett's wife. So you've got all these good actors. You've got a true story that is unfolding on two different levels, and it all ties together. I was fascinated by it. I thought, this is great. It's a long movie. It's like over 2 hours long. But it's rated R for profanity and violence. I scored it 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it that much. It was good to see Josh Hartnett back on the screen again. Like I said, I had thought his career was going to really take off, but I don't know how popular this movie's going to be. I don't know that people will be drawn to it like I was just because of the Josh Hartnett name, but I hope we're giving a little bit of publicity to it now, so that you will go out and search it out and want to see it. So make sure you've got it in your mind. Most Wanted, rated R, starring Josh Hartnett, and it gets a score of 7 out of 10 from me. Reach down there, hit that subscribe button. We want you on board as we give you all these reviews of the movies that are coming out during this time. So you have to hunt them down, but they are there. But this has been Jackie K. Cooper's Entertainment Rundown with a review of Amulet and Most Wanted.